My boyfriend, 33-year-old male, and I, 38-year-old female, have been dating since summer 2021, and since then, he has stayed at my apartment every day and every night. He owns his own home less than a mile away, which he said he purchased for his 3 roommates who were looking for a place to live. He only charges them $300 or so a month, out of the goodness of his heart. I have only been there twice for house parties, which I essentially invited myself to when we were getting to know each other. I never have asked him for money, not for rent, not for utilities, not for the groceries I always have to buy. He never goes shopping for any food or household supplies. 2 separate instances, I asked if he could get toilet paper. Once he bought a chintzy 4-pack at the gas station he was already stopping at, which I'm assuming is just to tide us over until I get a more realistic package. He has IBS and goes through a lot. And the second time he brought in a big garbage bag of almost empty rolls from his bathrooms at work, which they save. He doesn't cook and said in the past it's not important to him or he doesn't think of it, yet will certainly eat the food I buy and make. For the most part, I was more than happy to provide. But as time goes on, I feel like I'm carrying the mental load of living together by myself. My apartment is in disarray, and I can never get it under control with only me doing any work. I have mentioned parts of above to him over the last year, and sometimes it would result in him sheepishly doing 1 sink full of dishes and leaving the rest for me. Or when I tell him he has to figure out dinner for us for 1 night out of the 7 because I'm working late, that means he's door-dashing us something at 8 p.m. It's things like that make me start to resent him and unalive my attraction. It hurts my feelings. For such a nice guy, how can he be so thoughtless? It feels thoughtless to me anyway. I told him tonight I feel it would be best if we return to our old living situation, him at his home and me alone here. I expressed I can't or won't handle all the responsibility of our lives co-inhabiting. I also said it really hurt my feelings that for Christmas he got me Drano, which he waited to give to me on Christmas. Meanwhile, the sink has been backing up for a month, and a set of ladles. He didn't say anything. He just sat there and stared at me. I asked if he had anything to say, any feelings about it. He said he didn't know what to say. I felt insulted. There are far too many women in the same situation. I'm finding as I read Reddit. Are all men truly just one-track minded? Do they only think of themselves? Why don't men just take the initiative to help their partners without having to be given lists or told what to do or nagged about it? Update. So since this, he was still in my living room for a few hours, I've been in bed with infection 19. And laying there, I got miffed. I walked back in and asked twice more. You have nothing to say? No words. No, I'm so sorry you feel that way. What can I do? Nothing. No emotion. I can't believe it. This was supposed to be my best friend. I told him we're breaking up and he needs to go home now. I'm honestly really surprised and hurt by his lack of reaction. I should have known. Update 2. I packed his things and he picked them up this morning. I asked him again if he has any feelings about this and he was silent. I'm sorry, but I started to cry because it's just so hurtful. He said he was blindsided, then silent. I said, that's all I get after 2.5 years in tears, and he just said, bye, Lauren, like he always would. I needed him to hear me or understand where I was coming from, but I guess he doesn't, or doesn't care to. He's all right with just walking away with his things, with no conversation or words from the heart. That is the most painful thing out of all of this. His talks of getting a house, getting married. Why bother if you're just going to throw it in the towel when supporting us gets overwhelming? For those of you who asked why I kept this going for so long, we met when my father died and grew close. I wanted to have him in my life. It was positive and a breath of fresh air from my former partners. He was a kind, sensitive, thoughtful, caring guy when I met him. He even, on his own volition, promised me he wouldn't be a low-tier dude like the others. I don't know if he's on the spectrum. Many of you asked. He's joked about it in the past. He's not a bad guy. I guess he really just doesn't care, and I've got to accept that and try to learn from where I went wrong in the beginning. Update 3. You know what? I painted him in a bad light. Sure, these things happened, but ultimately he's a good guy. Maybe we're just not a good fit. Perhaps I went about things the wrong way by escalating it so quickly. Perhaps I'm too quick to blame and not good at communicating in our relationship. Either way, I got the space I so desperately wanted. I appreciate all of your input today. The response was astounding. I guess the takeaway from my failed relationship is to be sure to check in with your partners, where they're at, if their needs are being met, if there's anything you can do, if you're both still on the same page. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Saying something is not nagging. To be honest, you perpetuated this mess by consistently giving without any consideration. Maybe in your next relationship, you will realize the importance of starting with a balance instead of giving your entire self away. Comment 2. Not the idiot, but you are being used and enabling him. He has no desire to change and views you as an ATM. It's better to be single than to be with someone who uses and clearly doesn't respect you, as shown by the Drano stunt. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through this saga. It's been 3 months since my last update, and boy, do I have some news. After I kicked my boyfriend out, I was expecting some peace and quiet, but instead, I got a knock on my door a few weeks later. It was one of his roommates, looking frazzled and asking if my ex was here. Apparently, he hadn't been home since he picked up his stuff from my place. I was shocked. Where had he been staying all this time? The roommate told me that my ex had been acting weird before our breakup, always on his phone and sneaking around. I remembered how he used to be glued to his phone, even when we were supposed to be spending time together. It made me wonder if there was someone else. I started to do a little digging. I reached out to a friend who knew one of my ex's other roommates. What she told me was a bombshell. My ex had been renting out his house on a short-term rental site for months. The roommates were just a cover. He was making it ending the life of, charging way more than $300 a month. And the reason he never had money for groceries or toilet paper, he was blowing it all on fancy gadgets and nights out. I was fuming. All this time, he'd been lying to me, using my apartment as a free hotel while profiting off his own place. I felt like such a fool. But the story gets even crazier. One night, I was out with friends, trying to forget about the whole mess when I saw him. My ex was at the same bar, cozying up to a woman who looked familiar. It took me a second, but then it hit me. She was one of the guests who had stayed at his rental. I couldn't believe it. He had been cheating on me with a tenant. I confronted him right there in the bar. He tried to play it cool, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. The woman was just as surprised as I was. She had no idea he had a girlfriend. She thought he was just a charming landlord. The confrontation was heated. People were staring, and my ex was trying to calm both of us down. He kept saying it was a misunderstanding, but I wasn't having any of it. I told him he was a liar and a cheat, and I was done with him for good. But here's the twist. The woman he was with, she turned out to be the owner of a popular local food blog. She had been planning to feature my ex's rental property on her site, which would have brought in even more business for him. But after our public showdown, she decided to write an expose on him instead. She detailed his deceit, his shady business practices, and how he treated women. The blog post went viral. My ex's rental business tanked overnight. Guests canceled their bookings, and the negative reviews piled up. He tried to reach out to me, probably looking for sympathy or help, but I ignored him. He made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. As for me, I've been focusing on myself. I've been redecorating my apartment, making it feel like mine again. I've also been going out more, reconnecting with old friends, and even started dating someone new. He's nothing like my ex. He cooks, he cleans, and he's always considerate of my feelings. Friend's tattoo mix-up wasn't Chinese, but Korean. She blew up at me. 2 days later, she's thanking me as her mistake sparks an unexpected proposal. Throwaway. Friend group knows my main account. I, 37-year-old man, went out on New Year's Eve with a group of friends, including some friends of friends whom I haven't known well. One of them, Andy, 39-year-old man, brought his girlfriend Julie in her 30s. Julie decided to show a tattoo she recently got. She rolled up her sleeve to reveal it, proudly announcing that it said strength and beauty in Chinese. The The tattoo was on her forearm, and it nearly made me do a spit take. Now, I have to explain that I'm half Korean and often mistaken as Hispanic, so many Westerners don't perceive me as Korean. I am conversational in Korean and able to read the language. The tattoo, however, was in Hangul characters, and it definitely did not say strength and beauty. Julie became upset by my reaction and asked what my problem was. I replied, "It's not Chinese, and it doesn't mean what you think it does." She became even angrier and questioned how I would know. I explained that I am Korean American, can read Korean, and that what it actually said was not pleasant. I inquired about Julie's experience at the tattoo shop, and she shared that she had always wanted to get Asian characters and specifically requested a Chinese guy to do the tattoo. I asked Julie and Andy if Julie had done anything to upset the tattoo artist. She denied it, but Andy admitted that she was overly insistent about having him do the tattoo instead of any other artist in the shop. This was because she felt he would be more accustomed to working with these characters, among a few other reasons. At this point, Julie was crying and not enjoying the New Year's Eve gathering. She wanted to leave and asked Andy to take her. As she was leaving, she approached me and asked what the tattoo said. I replied, "It's like the worst thing you could call a woman. It's like bitch, but worse." She started crying even more while walking away. After Julie and Andy left, my other friends criticized me for ruining her new tattoo and suggested that I could have made something up or not reacted at all. I had to explain that the word used in the tattoo is a major cultural faux pas, and seeing it permanently inked on someone's skin is extremely shocking. Moreover, I was sipping on a beer when she revealed it, making it impossible to contain my surprise. Well, this morning I received messages from friends advising me to apologize to Julie for traumatizing her about her tattoo. I feel like this is absurd. It's an incredibly vulgar word permanently inscribed on her arm, and if that were on my skin, I would want to know. However, everyone else believes that I should have simply complimented her instead. So Reddit, am I the jerk for revealing to a friend what her tattoo actually says? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You didn't give her the shitty tattoo. You informed her that it said something bad. Everyone is only mad at you because you brought it to light, as you should. If I had what sounds like a possible slur on my arm, I would want to know as soon as possible so I could get the tattoo covered up or laser removed. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Hangul and Chinese characters are completely different. She's embarrassed, and rightfully so, because she messed up. Personally, I think you did her a solid by pointing it out. Offer to get a Sharpie and fix it until she can get it covered. Sigh. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. I never expected it to blow up the way it did. So here's what happened over the past 3 days. After the New Year's Eve fiasco, I was feeling pretty conflicted. I mean, I didn't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I also couldn't let Julie walk around with that kind of insult on her arm. The next day, I got a text from Andy. He said Julie was devastated and spent all night researching Korean translators. Turns out, she found out I was telling the truth. She was mortified. Andy also mentioned that Julie had been planning this tattoo for months. She had a Pinterest board full of inspirational Asian characters and had been showing it off to our friend group, talking about how it represented her overcoming her struggles with self-esteem. I felt bad for her. I really did. But here's where things got crazy. Julie called me up, still upset but calmer than the night before. She apologized for not believing me and asked if I could help her fix the tattoo. I agreed to meet her and Andy at a coffee shop to discuss what to do next. When we met up, Julie was wearing a long-sleeve shirt, obviously embarrassed about the tattoo. She confessed that she had been so focused on the aesthetic of the characters that she didn't consider the importance of their meaning. She had trusted the tattoo artist blindly because he was Asian, assuming he knew best. I could see she had learned her lesson. I suggested that she could get a cover-up tattoo, and I even offered to help her find a reputable artist who specialized in Asian characters. Julie was relieved and asked if I could come with her to the tattoo parlor to make sure everything went smoothly this time. We found a well-reviewed tattoo artist who was experienced in Hangul. I went with Julie and Andy to the appointment, and the artist was able to design a beautiful cover-up that actually meant strength and beauty. Julie was over the moon, and the tension between us melted away. But wait, there's more. Remember how my friends were mad at me for not lying to Julie? Well, they were at the same coffee shop when we were planning the cover-up. They overheard everything and finally understood why I reacted the way I did. They came over and apologized for giving me a hard time. It felt good to clear the air. The artist did an amazing job with the cover-up, and Julie couldn't stop thanking me. She even posted a picture of her new tattoo on social media, tagging me as her tattoo guardian angel. Our friends were all commenting on how great it looked and how happy they were that things turned out well. Andy pulled me aside and thanked me for handling the situation with grace. He admitted that he should have been more supportive of Julie in getting accurate information before getting the tattoo. He also confessed that he had been planning to propose to Julie for a while and was worried that this tattoo disaster would overshadow his plans. But here's the jaw-dropping moment. Andy proposed to Julie right after she got her new tattoo. He said the whole ordeal showed him how strong their relationship was and how they could get through anything together. Julie said yes, and everyone in the tattoo parlor cheered. It was a beautiful moment, and I felt honored to be a part of it. My wife's affair blew up when she played the victim, but the empty nursery whispered the truth. She never saw the twist coming. So this is a throwaway account. I will check some of these comments, but not all. So to get started, I am 36-year-old male, and my wife is 33-year-old female. We are expecting our first child soon. My mother, who is 70 years old, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and has been hospitalized since. It is so bad, doctors say she will not survive since treatments aren't working well on her. My dad died when I was young, and my mom took care of me while working 2 jobs so that I could have a good life. I feel I owe everything to my mother. I bought her a house and whatever she needed so that she could live her older years well, since we had to struggle so much. When I got home from work and visiting my mom, my wife and I were talking, and she asked if you got a call that I was in labor or your mom was going to die, who would you pick? I told her I would pick my mom. She asked why, and I told her that I wanted to be there to say goodbye to my mom since I would never see her again. And so she would have somebody there in her final moments. She got mad and said, "What about her and our baby?" I told her I would try to be there as fast as I could after my mom, but that most likely wouldn't happen, so I told her not to worry about it. She was still mad and told me to get out of the house. I left, and now I'm at my mom's house. So Reddit, am I the idiot? Edit. To everyone saying that I would be leaving her alone, no, I wouldn't. She would have her mom there. She has said she wanted her mom there with her. Yes, I was right for leaving my house. It was either I leave or she goes, and I was not about to put my pregnant wife out of our house. Yes, I have been there for her. I have taken off work to comfort and help her in any way she needs during this pregnancy. Edit 2. I keep getting the same question about why did I leave my house even though I may own the house. It was late, and I didn't want my pregnant wife out late at night, but she told me to leave, so I knew it was either me or her. 2. My mother is in the hospital. She is not at her house. 3. I thought a lot about what a lot of you said about how I should put her first, but she doesn't put me first at all. She chooses her sisters over me all the time. 4th, I do not make her feel second. I have put my wife first, especially in emergencies, and I have tried my best to comfort her. I have gone home, and now I'm thinking I don't need to apologize. Do y'all? I really don't know. Thanks to everyone who's commented. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you got kicked out of your house for getting a hypothetical question wrong. On face value, you are not the jerk, but what is likely happening is your wife isn't feeling the support and love she really wants and needs right now. Is she a super needy, controlling woman? Or simply feeling a tad neglected? Hormonal? I think you need to consider why she asked the question and address that. That's the problem. The hypothetical question and hurt reaction is simply how it plays out. Get out of your mom's house and go fix this. Leaving her home alone isn't going to help. Sleep out front if you need to. Bring lots of apologies, too. You were not kicked out for a bad answer here. There's a feeling of loss and something missing that your wife isn't feeling and needs to as soon as possible. Figure that out and go give it to her, and give her another version of it every day for the rest of your life. Go find out what part of love your wife doesn't think she has. Don't become a jerk and sleep at mom's house. Comment 2. No jerks here. I get it from both points of view. Yes, at face value, her question is selfish. But with all that could go wrong, I understand her fear. And the only part that you got wrong was not understanding. It's scary. Just so you can get a perspective, my son was born in the NICU or at the military hospital. He was in distress for most of my labor, depending on how I was positioned. It was scary every time those alarms would go off just because I moved. His heart rate and O2 stats would drop, like rapidly. Then, on the way out, he got stuck, which once again was terrifying because then the nurses began to panic. Not that they showed it, other than the urgency of their tones with me. I assure you, though, they were kind and all of that through the entire thing. So from her point of view, if something does go wrong and you're not there, then she's alone in her terror. Like I said, no jerks here. I get it from both points of view. But the unknown for your wife is scary as hell. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a month since my last post, and boy, do I have an update for you. Things have gone from bad to worse, and I'm still reeling from the events that unfolded. After the argument with my wife, I thought things would cool down, but they only heated up. My wife's mom, who was supposed to be her rock during the delivery, suddenly had to fly out of state for an emergency with my wife's sister. This left my wife feeling abandoned and more furious with me for not being there. Meanwhile, my mom's condition worsened. The doctors said she had days, maybe hours left. I was torn between my dying mother and my wife, who was about to give birth to our first child. I never imagined I'd be in such a heartbreaking situation. Then the unthinkable happened. I got the call that my wife was in labor at the same time the hospital called to say my mom was fading fast. I was paralyzed with indecision. In the end, I rushed to the hospital to be with my mom in her final moments, just as I had told my wife I would. My mom passed away holding my hand, and I missed the birth of my son. My wife was beyond furious. She had her baby alone, with no one by her side. When I finally arrived at the maternity ward, she wouldn't even let me see my son. She said I had made my choice, and now I had to live with it. The following weeks were a blur of funeral arrangements and trying to mend things with my wife. She wouldn't speak to me, and her silence was deafening. I tried to be there for her and our son, but she had built a wall I couldn't break through. In the midst of all this, I discovered something that shook me to my core. My wife had been having an affair with her ex-boyfriend. The late-night texts and calls I had brushed off as her reaching out to friends for support were actually her reconnecting with him. I was devastated. The thought that she might have turned to him in her time of need because I wasn't there was like a knife to my heart. I confronted her about the affair, and the confrontation was explosive. She accused me of abandoning her and our son, saying that I had pushed her into the arms of another man. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she blame me for her infidelity? The argument ended with her telling me she wanted a divorce. She said she couldn't be with someone who would choose a dying mother over his wife and newborn son. I was stunned. I had lost my mother, and now I was losing my family. I moved back into my mom's house, which was now mine, and tried to process everything. I was a father, but I couldn't see my son. I was a husband, but my wife wanted nothing to do with me. And I was a son who had just buried his mother. But then karma stepped in. My wife's ex-boyfriend decided he didn't want to be with a new mom and broke things off with her. She was left alone, just as she had left me. It was a subtle twist of fate that righted all the wrongs, but it didn't bring me any joy. My family was still broken, and I was still an outcast. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.